Well, let's now get more reaction to this morning's A-level results with the Shadow Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson here in the studio. Lovely to see you. So A-level grading returning back to sort of pre-pandemic normal levels. The government says that's important, an internationally recognised qualification. It's right that it goes back to the levels that it should be, isn't it?
I think it is right that we see a return. And I know that young people want the chance to demonstrate everything that they've worked hard for, everything that they've learned in recent years. And I do want to say congratulations to all of the young people receiving their results today. They've worked really hard. It's been a really challenging couple of years for our young people, everything that they experienced during the pandemic and now coming out of it. And today will be a day for them to celebrate all of their hard work, all of their commitment, and also the brilliant and amazing staff working in our schools and colleges. I know they'll be making sure in the days and weeks ahead that young people have got the opportunities and the options that are available to them so they can move on to that next path on their journey.
Do you think it's fair that these particular year, though, this cohort who've been through COVID, who weren't able to sit exams for GCSEs, are now going to come out with A-level results that might be lower than they would have got 2 years ago if they'd sat the same exam?
It has been a really tough time for our young people, and I know it will continue to be challenging for many of them. You know, they spent time away from friends and family. They had big disruption to their education, and it was really, really challenging. I think the difficulty that we've seen is that the government didn't put in place during the pandemic coming afterwards a really strong recovery plan to support our young people to deal with all of those different challenges. It was Rishi Sunak who said that he'd maxed out on the support that was available for young people. That is not the approach that I would have taken had I been Secretary of State, because we know that it was a really challenging time. There was a lot of disruption, but I do, of course, want to make sure that it's about what happens next too. So making sure that there are really good university options for young people, apprenticeship starts, further training, and also prospects where it comes to the world of work. I want to make sure that no matter where you're from, that your background is no barrier to getting on in life.
There's a lot of disparity this year between the way students are being treated in England and Wales and Northern Ireland, with some of those people being given extra information about exams. Are you confident that the universities are going to look at these results fairly and that those in England aren't going to be disadvantaged?
Yes, I am confident that the universities will take account of all of that. We, of course, have different education systems across the UK anyway, so they are accustomed to dealing with differences between the different systems. And it's right and proper that under devolution, different nations in the UK are able to decide on what's right in their country. I understand why they've taken this approach that they have in Wales to phase it in a bit more slowly, but I don't believe it will lead to serious consequences here.
We're talking about A-levels today. Obviously, most people, it seems, take A-levels because it's something that they need to do to go on to the next step of their education, usually university. But we've seen a record number of students dropping out over the last few years. There's one particular course, 30% of students at university have dropped off this one particular course. I mean, don't we need, we need A-levels to be rigorous, don't we? Because we need pupils to know that they can actually keep up when they get to university. But do you think we're encouraging too many students to go to university?
No, I don't, and I agree that high standards where it comes to our schools and colleges are incredibly important. I think we need to be careful that we don't rush to judgment around what's happening where it comes to young people who don't complete their university courses. I want to make sure that as many young people who start a course are able to finish it. But when I speak to students in many of our universities, they're facing the same challenges around the cost of living that so many of us are experiencing. It's really challenging at the moment. And I know that mental health is increasingly a worry for lots of young people. So I think some of those factors can be quite complicated. And also for some of our more disadvantaged students where there isn't family history of going to university, I want to make sure that when they get to university, they're receiving the support that they need to complete and continue with their studies. I've seen great examples of what universities can do in that area, but there is more that we need to be doing as a country.
We've seen students who've gone through all of this. They've struggled to make ends meet. If they're lucky enough, they would get somewhere cheap to live. But then they've gone through all of this and they haven't got their grades at the end of their university career because of lecturers' strikes. They're being failed, aren't they, by the institutions that they've fought so hard to get into?
Well, it's a failure to get to a negotiated settlement and to bring an end to this. I do hope that all of the parties to the dispute can get around the table and try and find a way through this, because I don't think anybody wants to see our young people lose out any more than they already have done. But the only way that we can resolve that is through the different parties, the institutions, the employers and the trade union, working together, negotiating and getting a compromise.
Would Labour change the funding model for universities? There's been much written in the last few weeks about the fact that so many universities are taking a larger number of international students because they can charge what they like for the fees for international students compared to the UK, which means fewer kids from the UK potentially will be able to go to UK universities. The universities are saying that they have to do this because that's how they're going to make ends meet. That's not going to change, is it? What would Labour do differently?
Well, I do think it's important to recognise the real value that international students bring to our country, both in terms of our standing in the world, because many will return home having had a great experience at a British university, but also the investment that they bring in our towns and cities. I've seen myself in Sunderland the impact that international students have had in facilities, in wider economic impact that they've had.
But it's not fair on kids from Sunderland if those places then don't exist for kids from Sunderland, is it?
But they're not being squeezed out in the way that people will often describe. Some of the bigger increases we've seen have been around postgraduate students. But I do think overall we need to get to a better and fairer system where it comes to university fees and to the whole system we've got at the moment. The government know that the system we've got is not going to last for the long term, and it's becoming more regressive.
Bridget Phillipson, Shadow Secretary State for Education. Thank you.
Thank you.